Erin Walker.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Paddle and Portage Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you again. Okay, for people who don't know who you are, I could explain it, but I think you would do a better job. Just let people know who you are and what you love.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm Erin. I'm part of the Lost Lakes YouTube channel that my husband and I have, where we film and share our backcountry adventures, paddling and going on winter trips. And then also for the last couple months, I've been writing with Paddle and Portage, so sharing some of our stories through some of the articles here, and that's been really fun. And I'm from just north of the border. I live on Lake Superior as well, and share the boreal forest with you guys here.
Yeah, in all these cool ways, we are very literally neighbors, just divided by the imaginary line between our countries. But you made the trek down here to Grand Marais to sit down in the studio. We're going to go skiing tomorrow, which is going to be awesome.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to exploring some of your trails.
Yeah, and I mean, exploring, that's something you do a lot of, and it comes out in your creative work, in your writing. But I'm really curious where that all started for you. Where did the exploration, where was it born? Where were the first seeds planted?
It goes back to the beginning. When if I think about it, it's been there as long as I can remember. I'm really lucky where both my parents are super adventurous, and they're adventurous and brave enough to have continued camping and doing canoe trips once they had kids. And so they just, for as long as I can remember, we'd go out and go on trips together where we, Quetico often, Nays Provincial Park, which is a park on Lake Superior, and kind of everywhere in between they would take us out, and we got to spend a lot of our summers kind of enjoying those areas. So it's been with me for as long as I have been me.
Amazing. So you were in a canoe and in a tent pretty much as far back as you can remember.
Yeah. I definitely, I don't know how young I was, but I imagine quite young still. My parents first took us out. The first memory that I have, really strong memory, I was probably 4, and we were at Nays Provincial Park, which is gorgeous, sand beach, tons of driftwood.
Right on Lake Superior? Right
on Lake Superior. And we went out for, it might have just been a long weekend, I don't even remember, but we went out and met with another family who has a son who's a year older than me and a daughter a year younger than my sister, I think. So, family friends, good age gap with the kids. And I just remember spending the whole weekend playing with Bram, their son. And we had he'd brought these trucks that they probably got at the lunch place down the road. There was these little monster trucks that were a couple inches big, and we'd spent all summer making forts and ramps with driftwood and playing with them. And I have such just vivid memories of that. And then also of the feeling when the trip was ending and we had to say goodbye, and they had a minivan, and I remember it closing and they were driving off, and I reached in my pocket and I still had the truck, and I was like, oh no. So I ran up and knocked on the door and slid open. Bram was there, and I was like, oh, your truck. And he said, it's for you. Oh, and we've been best friends ever since. I was in his wedding 2 summers ago. He just had his first baby, actually, and his parents too are I'm still really close with their whole family. So yeah, that's my most vivid early camping memory, and it so embodies the adventure, but then also the bonds and friendships is such a big part of being out there for me.
Oh, totally. Like lifelong friendships, tons of imagination. I imagine you were like in your own little world on those beaches.
Oh, 100%.
Those trucks. And probably like, especially at that age, like exploring is immense, but it also can be like exploring, 100 yards of shoreline can be the most epic wonderland.
Yeah. The exploring and freedom of, I think that's part of what I fell in love with, was being able to just in so many ways. I feel like there weren't many times where the answer was no. We often it was just like, I want to do this. All right. I want to do this. Okay. And one of the things too that I really remember from a young age is and this is something that people know about me, anyone who spends a couple minutes will usually find out that I love processing firewood. I don't know why.
It's so satisfying.
It's so satisfying, and it's been with me. I think I say I don't know why, and then I'll explain to you why.
Yeah.
I think part of it is I remember that was one of the first kind of responsibilities I had at camp, and it felt very, I don't know how old I was, but quite young and I was, my parents were like, okay, here's how you do it safely and kind of how to process the wood. And it felt pretty grown up to be able to swing the axe and provide fuel for around camp. And so even that bit of the freedom and some responsibility being out there were just things that I really gravitated to and have helped feed that kind of lifelong love of being out there.
Yeah, and you're using like a tool that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Which requires like some like really cool. I mean, those are like those moments as a kid where you like really feel proud of yourself when you learn how to use these things and contribute to the group.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the coolest parts of firewood.
Yeah, I think so.
Like,
everyone loves the person who produces firewood.
Yeah, because most sane people do not enjoy that.
Right.
So those of us that do get to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same reason in sports there's always the goalie, a little bit of a special role there. So,
yes.
Yeah, probably a little bit of ego, subtly, but.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely understand that.
I think that's the first time I've admitted it or maybe recognized it myself, but if we're being honest, I think it's there.
Well, your secret is safe with Paddle and Portage and
Perfect.
everybody listening.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so Erin, those early trips obviously shaped who you are now, and I'm sure there's 100,000 experiences that you could recall between now and then, but fast forward now, how does that desire for freedom, exploration manifest in your outdoor life?
I think just the fact that it's something that I've continued to prioritize and make time for and kind of build it, and now to the point where it's all kind of come to this point where John and I, my husband and I, our life's very much built around it, and we're able to go out on these long trips and be able to make money sharing them on YouTube, and but everything kind of to get to here, and this was never for the longest time it wasn't on my radar, it wasn't the end goal, it was always just being able to, I think if I think back to me being young, what I would have hoped for me at this stage or any stage of my life is that I would always continue to make the time to prioritize it and get out and experience the outdoors and go just keep adventuring and doing some of those things. So that's something that makes me really happy, and I reflect on from time to time. I actually use that. There's actually a line in a song, and it's Gary Lightbody, and it's the kids we once were wouldn't recognize us now.
Oh.
And it just hits. I love it. And I think in some ways I would in the best ways, but I wouldn't in terms of, I think I've been so fortunate to make lots of my wildest childhood dreams have been realities in different ways. And I think it would be hard for my little brain to comprehend some of the stuff we've got to do. So that plays back sometimes for me, and I smile.
And this episode of the Paddle and Portage Podcast is brought to you by Sawtooth Outfitters. They're conveniently located on Highway 61 in Tofty. No matter what season, whether it's your first trip or you are an experienced adventurer, they are there to outfit you with the right gear and knowledge to ensure an unforgettable experience. Winter rentals include snow trekker canvas tents with wood stoves, toboggans, skis, and snowshoes for outdoor winter adventures. Summer rentals include, of course, canoes, kayaks, bikes, guided tours as well. Their outdoor gear store is stocked with clothing, gear, maps, souvenirs, have you covered for all of the seasons. So whether you're on the North Shore for a short getaway or an extended trip, stop in and check them out. Otherwise, you can find them at sawtoothoutfitters.com or give Jeff and Sarah and the crew a call at 218-663-7643. Start planning your BWCA or North Shore adventure now. Sawtooth Outfitters.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Lyons. I'm the executive director of Save the Boundary Waters, and I'm that person who sends you way too many emails. But also, if you don't get our emails, you should probably go sign up. Save the Boundary Waters is a proud sponsor of Paddle and Portage. We work to protect canoe country so that folks can paddle and portage in northeastern Minnesota for generations to come. Did you know that the Boundary Waters is America's most visited wilderness? Not only is it one of the country's most iconic and unique landscapes, but its 1.1 million acres of lakes and boreal forests offers something for everyone. People have long found inspiration and strength in the Boundary Waters, and now the wilderness needs you to speak loudly on its behalf. The future of this special place is at risk, threatened by America's most toxic industry, copper mining. Thanks for reading all the emails from us. I know we send a lot, but clearly there's a lot at stake for canoe country. You can make a difference. You already have. Join us in the effort to protect the Boundary Waters for generations to come by visiting our website at savetheboundarywaters.org to learn more.
Amazing. Yeah, because you went from like trucks on that little stretch of beach to, weeks-long trips in the subarctic. I mean, it's really been an arc that you never could have imagined probably was possible.
No, I don't even think, I know, and even from a young age, I remember, I think I was in grade 2, I'm pointing at the map, when the Northwest Territories was split into 2. It used to just be the Northwest Territories, a huge chunk of land, and then they created the territory of Nunavut as well. And we learned a little bit at that. I remember sitting in that class learning about it, and I remember being like, I want to go there. And so even that's something that's been on my radar and I've been interested in for so long. And so just last summer, John and I finally got to go and spent 3 weeks in Nunavut and got to see some of the caribou migration. And so, yeah, I think, I remember it's funny, the map's there, looking at it in my grade 3 class and wanting to go there. But I don't think I could even comprehend what that meant.
Which is part of the draw, right?
Yeah.
Part of the drive is that curiosity to go find out.
The unknown.
And you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. And you've managed to find a way I think many people find a way to keep doing that. But you've managed, in partnership with John, to find a way to do that really, I think, especially for him, full-time sort of YouTube filmmaker.
Yeah.
And you're doing that too, which is really cool. But you have another life that is also sort of adventurous in other ways that you have a foot in as well. So you're doing these adventures, but you're also doing other work. And you mind just like laying some of that out?
Yeah. So I'm also a psychotherapist, and that's something that I have worked towards since I was in high school. I was interested in psychology and wanted to get into, and finally in the last couple of years finished my master's degree and became a registered psychotherapist, and I love it. I love that work. I love being able to I really enjoy that part of my life, and so I'm really lucky with kind of how things work these days. I get to work virtually and work from home and have a very flexible schedule that I have a lot of control over, which creates space to do both. Before that, I worked 9 to 5 and great, really enjoyed that work too, but again, didn't have that same freedom. Still, again, in that, there's lots of ways we get out, use vacation time, go out on weekends, and would still prioritize being outdoors, but there was a lot more factors outside of our control that would impact how much time we spent out there. So yeah, there's a bunch of different things have kind of come together that have allowed us to have a life very much based around the weather.
Yeah. And the exploration and the freedom. I'm so curious, Erin, if there's a sort of crossover. When I think of like exploration, there is like the natural world and that sort of draw that I think many of us experience, but there's also like the human.
Yeah.
Like, is that another realm of like unknown and curiosity and like exploration for you that has driven you, or does that feel like completely separate and distinctively different?
I don't think I've thought of it in those terms, but as you say it, there's the same curiosity is there, and the same kind of just interest in human behavior, in the brain, and how we, why we are the way we are. So there's definitely and wanting to know as much as I can and understand it. And I'm always interested when new research comes out on anything to do with psychology. So definitely, I'm sure there's a parallel there, I guess, but definitely just in passion, which creates a desire to dive in and know as much as I can about it.
Do you ever have that experience where, and that makes a lot of sense, but are your clients ever like, I watched your last YouTube video, that was really cool? Or does it feel separate?
They're quite separate for the most part. When we were living in Marathon, I was working in Marathon as well. And so that would happen from time to time. And I would always, I kind of had to work with my supervisor to figure out how to navigate that, because it's new and kind of not in the textbooks of how to manage those relationships. So it'd be something I would, really make sure that if I was working with a client who was familiar with our videos or channel, that wasn't what we were talking about, right? That it's like we can acknowledge it and but still be there and be there for them. Now I'm working my role. I'm working with people from all across Canada, so I haven't come across that yet. No one's recognized me on the computer screen from YouTube, which it's nice. It's nice to have that. I find it a lot easier to have the separation.
Oh, anonymity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that we got on that tangent, because this brings up something I've been dying to ask you about, which is sort of maybe an intersection of these things. You tell me, but you recently released your video of you sort of for Survivor.
Yeah, the audition video.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if we can like snap our fingers and roll that clip, but it's you are in a hole that you cut in the ice, basically giving your best pitch to the Survivor show of why you should be on the next episode, while being in frigid cold water, being hardcore. So tell us a little bit about just like even that video.
That process. Yeah. So being on Survivor is something that since I was a kid, like I watched the first season with my dad and sister, and it's always been something I've wanted to do. But up until 2018, I believe it's 2018, it was only open to Americans, not Canadians. So once that opened up where they were able to have Canadians on the show, I've really wanted to put in an audition and just haven't kind of got the courage to do it. The pieces haven't fallen into place. I've tried, and over the last couple of years, a couple of times I've like sat down and tried to do my pitch, and just was struggling to convey. It just didn't feel compelling, and then I kind of set a hard deadline for myself that I wanted to get it done by the end of 2024, and again sat down, spent most of a day kind of working on it, trying to do it, and I think I realized that I'm more of I like to let my actions speak for themselves. I'm just put my head down and work and do things and show by actions more than words. And so I was struggling to put it into words. And as I was doing that, I kind of had the realization that I could do it from the ice, and then I would be making a point. So I did.
You made a point.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hardcore, pretty badass point that
yeah.
I mean, I don't remember you shivering once in that video.
I kept it as cool as I could. My lips were pretty white by then, and there was lots of shivers, but once I got out, but yeah, I was like, nope, we're gonna do it.
You kept it cool.
I think it was both of being like, okay, I have to, show that this isn't bugging me too much, and then also I think it was the mentality of being like, as soon as I let myself shiver or kind of show that, then I was gaslighting myself, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I was like, you're fine.
I'm not cold.
Yeah,
I'm not cold.
As soon as that starts, then I know what's happening. But yeah, so it was both. It was for, made a good video, but it was partly just the manipulation of my brain.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, okay, so physically, I think we already know, but you proved it to anybody who was questioning that you're a badass, that you just on what you already do for fun, but then this video,
right.
Physically and then mentally, that you have these capabilities, and those, I mean, are all really cool and admirable and awesome, worth celebrating. Why Survivor? What's that about? Like,
yeah. So again, I remember watching the show. The first season came out. I think I was around 10, and I watched it with my dad and my sister, and it was this really cool intersection kind of some of my parents' adventures. I mentioned that they're very adventurous, and so they built a sailboat and sailed across the Pacific before my sister and I were born.
Just for fun.
And so we grew up kind of hearing these stories, and some of them, lots of them took place in some of the places where they were filming those first seasons. I think the first one was in Fiji, but
so was your dad being like, we stopped there at the sailboat?
Yeah, or they had the coconuts, and he's like, I know how to open that. Whatever. It became this the stories that we'd heard kind of became a lot more real, and I think for him it was pretty cool to share and to be like, I know that world. And so just from that time, it was like, this is somewhere I want to go and something I want to do. And then on top of that, there's the social piece, which as a psychotherapist is interesting to me. And I think
the social piece of the show
of the
itself.
game. Yeah.
The game.
Yeah. Or show game
Competition.
Yeah. Is something that I would love to experience and try. And I think that it would be really cool to, just have the opportunity to, like you said, there's kind of this combination of skills of the outdoor skills and the psychotherapy piece that come together pretty nicely to make a good Survivor contestant. So I'd like to give it a try.
I mean, so right now you've made the video. The next step is to get on the show.
Yeah.
Which I imagine would be quite an honor for you, just to be on the show you grew up
For
watching
sure.
with your family. How much does it matter to you that you win? Is that a part of it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's the end goal. Ideally, I think it's funny because you're like, here's the different pieces, and the one that is also important. So there's the applying, trying to get on the show. It'd be incredible. And then the next thing, it's kind of like being a goalie. If you don't want to let the first shot in, is you don't want to be the first voted out. So if I got past that, then it would be eyes on the finish line. And I think, again, I like to kind of show I'm more of a like action person than a big talker, but I also secretly am competitive, and so I'd want to win.
Yeah, like kind of having the win be this measure that like, all the stuff, all the time and energy you've invested into cultivating all of these skills and all these experiences, like here's the place where it gets to shine.
Yeah. So right now, like there's a part of me that's like kind of, combines to be the ultimate, a really good Survivor competitor. But I guess what I really mean is to be the winner of Survivor.
What would that mean to you?
The first thing that comes to mind is my dad, and just like how cool that would be to share with him, but even just being on the show, and be actually even in the casting process, if they do take interest in you at a certain point, the host Jeff Probst calls and interviews, because he's a producer as well, and I just like, my dad's such a big fan of his too. He's a pretty cool guy, Jeff. So even the thought of being able to like get Jeff to say hi to my dad would be super cool. It just ties back to so many things. But yeah, I think those like core childhood memories with my family would be a big part of the emotion of, if I were to win, would be pretty cool. It'd be cool to share.
I mean, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
This is something I love about you, Erin, is that, so many people are like, it'd be really cool to go, like, as a kid, I wanted to go all the way up to the Northern Territories. Like, that'd be cool to do someday. And then you actually do it. Even something like getting your master's, even something like cultivating a life of outdoor travel. Like, we all have things we really want to do with our life and may or may not ever get to. And you are like, how many people said, oh, it'd be really cool to be on Survivor someday.
Yeah.
And you took that step. And hopefully it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll keep, now that...
like you're a doer. You're a doer.
Yeah. I think, and part of that comes from, a big part of that, I really attribute to my parents. They were I was raised not to fear failure. Like, not succeeding at something didn't really matter. Like, it was not trying, not doing things was
failure isn't actually failure.
Yeah. Like, I don't have that. I do in some ways, but I think I was modeled very much of just like, if you want to try something or go for something, like go for it. And if it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, you'll probably learn something along the way. But they were very like incredibly supportive and of some pretty, just, I don't know, just like of whatever I had a lot of, like, I don't know, one summer I started building pallet furniture in my mom's basement.
Sorry, pallet furniture?
Yeah, sort of like old pallets because I couldn't afford wood. And she was just like, that's cool. And I was like staining them and it smelt the whole house. But it was never like, what are you? She was like, cool, kid. Yeah, so I think...
like, no, it was like, you can't do that. Or,
yeah, or like,
that's
why?
Stupid.
Yeah, it was just like, oh.
It's like full send.
You having fun?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I feel... I'm always incredibly grateful to both my parents for that mindset. And again, they really modeled that because they were, I think, in their early 30s. Oh, no, they were in their 20s. And they just were like, we're going to build a sailboat and then sail it across the Pacific. And
yeah,
did that. So
I mean, that needs to be
that's its whole thing. Yeah.
Let's come do a whole nother thing on that story.
Yeah.
Because that is also, I mean, you come from an incredible sort of lineage in that way.
Yeah,
really supported you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think with that, that's what I'm looking for. With that, they modeled that, right? Like I saw it, and I heard again the story just throughout their lives were just did these really cool things. So it never, and they never made anything feel impossible. It was just like, oh, if you want to do it, you can again figure it out, or have some fun along the way. And
hell yes.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's been great. Yeah.
Well, hopefully that takes us all the way through to you getting on Survivor, winning Survivor, and then looking back and being like, yeah, I did Survivor, but now I got other cool things I'm doing. And
right.
It's just another part of your journey.
Just another piece. Yeah. And for so long, since, was it 7 years or so, just getting the audition tape done, something that was just a block for me. And so even... like I really want to continue trying to apply and get on the show, but I feel like a big barrier, one of the biggest barriers to it is already I've kind of gotten over, and that was just my own challenge of like getting a video out. And now, whether it's this round or next round, I feel more confident about I'll keep putting in applications and hopefully catch their eye one of these days. But the biggest challenge to it, I think, was my own just get my act together. So I've done that part.
The act is together. Okay, so this is really exciting. We're gonna be cheering you on. Paddle and Portage has your back.
Thank you.
What's coming up for you that's maybe a little more certain that you're feeling excited about in the near future? You got adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got one actually just next week. John and I are leaving for just 6 days, but we're going to go into Canoecopia, do a winter trip in there. And I've never done winter tripping in Canoecopia yet. So we're pretty excited for that. We are really excited because Canoecopia doesn't have any motor traffic, right? So there's some nice trails without any snow machines coming in and out. So just nice and peaceful. It should be pretty quiet. And then from there, we've got couple other bigger trips planned, at least one for this summer, planning to get back to the Barrens in the near future as well.
That really captured your heart.
Yeah, that's going to be I think we're going to be getting back there semi-regularly it's always going to be on the to-do list now. And then sailing, actually, we're hoping this summer. We've just moved back closer to Thunder Bay. There's a good sailing community there, good access to Lake Superior, and we just love Lake Superior so much.
Do you have a boat?
We don't.
Okay.
Well, we figure we should learn to sail first.
Yeah. You could just build one like your
We
parents
could,
did.
yeah. That's actually, I'd like to build a cedar strip canoe with my dad at some point. But yeah, so we've kind of dip our toes in the water and learn some of the basics about sailing this summer. And then hopefully in the next year or two, get ourselves a boat and do a little bit more, kind of expand our access to Lake Superior a bit. So that's exciting and kind of full circle with, my parents built their boat and sailed, but then sold it before having kids. And so we never learned to sail. So again, another bucket list, another thing that's always been there that I want to do. I finally have the time. And
I, especially after this conversation, fully believe that you will do it.
Thank you.
You know, Erin, you actually, this whole conversation just feels like sitting in the presence of a lot of inspiration. And so I want to thank you for sharing a lot of that inspiration that like moves to action. And I hope that everyone listening realizes that all they have to do is give themselves permission to go after the thing.
Yeah, to get started, take the first step. But thank you. That's really kind, generous of you to say. And yeah, I agree. I think it's whatever it is that you want to do or have been dreaming of. It's how do you take the first step to make it a reality? That's usually the hardest part.
Large or small.
Yeah. That's also my psychotherapist speaking.
I didn't want to point that out, but thank you for saying it. So I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I just want to speak for Joe and I and say we love all your writing. I'm glad you're going to be continuing to do that and bringing your wisdom, your motivation, your storytelling to the Paddle and Portage platform. So anybody hearing this, check that out. And also check out Lost Lake's YouTube channel. Thanks.
Thank you.
We did it.
How'd we do?
30 minutes.